Let's confront your troubles.
Make the conscious the unconscious.
Hi, this is Josh.
And this is something. Welcome to this session in the Mind Quest.
So today we have in mind talking about the loneliness crisis, both from the perspective of our modern, very pop discourse about how it's a crisis of young people, how maturity is now toxic, but we also wanted to have a look at loneliness through history and loneliness as a human emotion and as a part of a human experience. So yeah, so that's what we're doing today.
So, well, as far as I get it, somewhere in 1973, emotional and social isolation were recognized as actually mental issues, right? And it started being studied recently, just about the end of World War II. So, what happened? Is it the social changes that are coming around? Is it because we're living in smaller houses now, or I don't know? This is gonna be something with this individual lifestyle that we got now.
Right. So it's a few factors. Something that we say often when talking about like psychology and the history of psychology is that a lot of the emotions that we now name, like loneliness, they were there like all along. It was just that humanity or different human groups didn't always have the word to name these feelings or to name these expressions. So that's one thing. On one hand, we started identifying this feeling as loneliness and identifying this feeling of loneliness as being a problem. And this process of individuation that you mentioned as well, that where we move from collective societies to more individual ones, this also encouraged a more introspective view of your role in society. And unfortunately, and we will get into this afterwards, the answer to that question has been, it's all about you, and your role is the only thing that matters. And we will see why this is a bit more complex than that in
We're also checking something about what this new millennia has brought in our system, right? How this systematic idea of building structural loneliness has been growing. And, well, how somehow, yeah, that's right? Somehow our anchors have been starting to dilute in modern society, like family and our religion sometimes, and those things that were anchors in life that set you, help you set foot on earth. Those are being starting to miss around, and they are telling you it's good, and somehow you start to feel lonely, right? What else is in there for today? What else is missing?
We're going to talk a little bit about like sort of the role of technology in all this, right? And it kind of connects to the idea I said before. Technology by itself didn't sort of invent loneliness. It didn't invent separation. It didn't invent how heavy it is to be alone, right? Like there is a reason why, like back in the day, a punishment as bad as death was to be exiled from your city, from your polis, from your whatever, right? What technology does is to reveal that, oh, it's not just me feeling like this, be whoever you are. It also accelerates changes that otherwise would have taken centuries, right? So going from heliocentrism and from theocentrism, from thinking that God is everything, into our age of enlightenment and positivity and rationality, that took centuries. So the change of institutions used to be really long. Now institutions change a lot faster. It is harder to feel part of an institution that in 5 years may be gone. So there's also that dimension of modern tech and maybe a little bit about work and your relationship with the labor force, I guess, as another factor of individuality.
Well, you mentioned it, but despite this unprecedented online connectivity that we have now, right? There's this ubiquitous data-driven isolation. Shows that loneliness rates reach record highs across generations today. And this paradox, this sets in the promises of recognition and reconnection, yeah, but often it ends up reinforcing this emotional distance in comparison to what you're really looking for, right? And there is a base dissatisfaction with the whole idea. They're offering you connection in real time and all that you want, but at the end, you're not really connected with somebody. So, how do we start today's session?
Right. So I think you're making a really good point there. Something that has happened is that instead of connecting to people, we have started to connect to these abstracted image of people. So you don't talk to me, Josh, you follow me on Blue Sky, right? So everything I say on Blue Sky, even if I do, I'm kind of unhinged. And there is a process where I am, before hitting the send button, at least a little bit, I am thinking about, oh, should I send this? Is it a good idea? Maybe 3 days down the line, I may come back and say, you know what, it wasn't a bad idea. Let me delete that. If you see that 5 days after, you have seen nothing about my actions, about my thought process, about my anything. All you see is the image that I built. So it's like if I make a painting, like so. There's a lot of things to say, let's say, around loneliness and how a lot of it has to do with having lost this idea of thinking of relationships as something that you put effort into and practice and things like that. So, there's a lot of things here to say, but maybe, we can start with what's on your mind today, and that will give us a good starting point.
I was thinking about this, and I'm really thankful that now I'm in a healthy relationship with a girl. But that several years ago, right, I was married to a person that was quite a complicated one. And even in that marriage, I used to get this feeling of loneliness quite often. Like, no matter that, or despite she was next to me, I was alone. There was no way of feeling like, not only there was no company, but there was no teammate, if that makes any sense, right? You're supposed to be in a marriage. I guess the idea is to be a teammate, to play in the same team, to work together and get along. So somehow you're going to get to build up, and grow older together and be a company for each one. But the issue was always staying in that situation of being alone. And so what's the issue here? How is that you're able to feel alone even in company? What's going on? I don't really get it, because and it happened like for 2-3 years in my life, that even in that company I was always alone. And also I got this idea and this question in my mind, that is it getting worse as we grow older? I mean, because now, yes, I do have the company of my girl, but some of my best friends are, if not far away, like in your case, are far away inside my own country now. So, I mean, this is what normal looks like now. We are to accept this new normal, or how we overcome this situation and this constant feeling of loneliness.
Okay, so I think there are a few elements in what you said that I think we could stop for a second to think about. I think first you are recognizing a very important difference between loneliness and being alone. We normally think of these things as the same, but they are not. Loneliness is the feeling of being alone. I think loneliness is defined by the World Health Organization. Loneliness is a mismatch between the amount of social connection that the person wants and the amount of social connection that they can actually get. So there are two important elements here. One, and we have talked about psychology before, in our modern day 2025, mental health is taken from the point of the person. So it is the person who decides, I want to have this amount of relationships, or this kind of relationship, or this amount of social contact. Loneliness happens where that person wants to have whatever amount of contact that is, but either because of the real life practical limitations for where they are, where they live, either because of personal limitations, disabilities, challenges with communication, for whatever reason, because we live in 2025, for whatever reason, they are unable to have those connections. So that's loneliness. And that's when we talk about the loneliness crisis, this is what we're talking about. We're saying that a record number of people are now able to recognize this issue in themselves and present this as, hey, we need to do something about this as a society. Very important. This is not a personal failure. This is not... I think sometimes we fall into this idea of, oh, you're lonely, you don't have a girlfriend. Oh, okay, so you have to go to the gym, you have to get a better job, you have to go to therapy, take meds. The problem is that you are not good enough. No, that's not the problem. That's not the problem. We have to understand this is an us issue. This is a community issue. This is whether we're talking on a local level, me, my city of Calgary, or we're talking on a society level, Western society that hyper privileges individuals. So I think that's the first thing that you are kind of sort of cluing into there. That yes, you were not physically alone, but there was this feeling of loneliness. These relationships did not have the quality or the type or whatever you needed or wanted. And I think, kind of connecting to that is this idea of, a lot of the friendships most people have come from when they are younger. Yes, on one hand, there is a natural increase in difficulty to make friends, mainly because we lose the spaces where we are not really doing anything. So if you're in class, you don't like the class, your friend doesn't like the class, you are not doing anything, you are just hanging out with each other. So, on one hand, yes, in theory, well, we can talk about this later, but that yes. But I think that's important to understand that making friends takes effort. And in 2025, the average working person you meet is not going to have a lot of energy to do things because of work, because of family, because of stress, because they have been told that they have to go to the gym, get a better job, clean the house, because all of these things, I don't have time to do nothing and hang out with my friend. Or if we're going to hang out, okay, it's 2 hours. 2 hours of, okay, let's go brunch, 2 hours, and then I have to go back to the gym. That's work. You just turned having a friend into another form of work, where you have to get a checklist there. Okay, I saw my friend this week. So there is that as well. This idea of making friends takes energy, and a lot of people are just exhausted. So there is this reality of, if you want to make friends, you have to go out. Well, if you don't have energy to go out because you have 2 jobs, yeah, like that's not your fault. Not just a situation where we have gotten ourselves into. I think I think that's kind of the first step as well. So I think the question I could put back to you there is, so if you look at that time and kind of following the line up until today, what has loneliness been like for you? So what has been your experience of loneliness while not being physically alone, if that makes sense?
Okay. So now that you mention it, it's weird because, I never was like the kid that has a lot of friends, right? That is always surrounded by people. No, I always have few friends, not more than the fingers in my hand, and I was fine with it, always fine with it. But it got me questioning sometimes, especially now. since I'm not really like hanging out with my friends. But I do think I get also this feeling of freedom that at some point hanging out with your friends was also job, an obligation, right? As you mentioned it, and that's the other thing. So somehow this feeling of loneliness is sort of the price of freedom. Because you need to sacrifice something in order to keep up with those relationships. In any relationship, you need to sacrifice something to keep up, right? And the other thing is that everything nowadays feels like it's somehow consumer driven, right? Like there's always something you can get, you can buy it if you want to, but something you can get that is new and somehow will call your attention, and they will call for action, right? Like, do this, you need it, for each and every one of the individuals out there. So it is different, incredibly different, and yet there is always something for each and every one of us. And you are like called to this consuming society, right? There's not only consuming from buying stuff, but it's consuming somehow yourself. Well, a few years ago, I was working in a different city, and even though I got like friends and family near, my nowadays my wife and my kid were here, so I was like at an 8-hour trip distance to see them every time. And yeah, I got also when I was working there this sense of freedom that I was free from my obligations as a family member, if that makes any sense. Okay, I got maybe the economical obligations were in the set, but I was not there being a father, not there being a husband, right? Not working in the family industry somehow, right? If you can use that word too. So, but at the same time, this feeling of loneliness gave me this idea of, I don't know, if now we call it guilt. So I was feeling so guilty of being free that I wasn't able actually to reconnect with my friends, because that was bad. I was supposed to be in another place doing another thing, and I was forcing myself to stay in home and do nothing, or maybe just take long walks through the whole afternoon, even walk from job that was about 2 to 3 hours walk back home, to try to avoid this idea of loneliness. Maybe get inside a mall or something like that, just to see people walk around and having like social time. Something that I was cut off from society somehow. If you get what I mean, like, and not really being into reality, but walking through it, like being a wraith in that situation, yeah, walking like a ghost around every little thing. And then you got this idea that maybe you are not there because you need to somehow belong somewhere. So you need to buy a passing now to belong to, I don't know, a club, or maybe join a group of friends that are, I don't know, maybe in role-playing games or video games, or a literature club, and to share with somebody else, or maybe you want to join dancing classes, whatever. But you need to pay a fee in order to reconnect with people somehow. Last time I did that, I entered a class on hyperreal drawing to specialize myself. And I was like, oh, really cool, I'm gonna meet people. No, that was a competition all the time. who's gonna be best, who's gonna do best, who's gonna achieve the real technique, right? No friends from there, just knowledge. And it happened with each and every like school I tried to get in to learn something new. No real friends, maybe colleagues at the best. So the question is here, it is okay. And I need to ask you this because I'm feeling like it is constant, and now I'm feeling it again because I'm living in a city that is not mine, is where my family is living, and I'm okay with it. But I don't have friends here. The only person I talk to is actually my wife, and maybe my political family. So I need to buy myself this identity to belong somewhere in order for me to have some kind of social life now. Or am I to actually, I don't know, like get along with this feeling of loneliness and being actually alone and try to get the best of it?
Okay, so that's a complicated question. let's let's begin with this idea of pay to play, right? Of having to pay money or spend resources to have this contact with other people, right? I think unfortunately that is very much just the result of like living in 2025 under capitalism, right? Like, and you know, and even then it is very much like a matter of privilege, right? Like if you live in a big city, sure, like I live in Calgary, yeah, I can go speed dating, right? If I live in fucking Moosjo, like I better not, probably not, right? Like if I live in a very rural northern province northern city or northern town in Canada, probably won't have that same privilege, right? There is also this privilege of personal ability, right? Like some people are very good and can just go up to the bar and make friends there. Like my aunt is amazing and makes you friends in random noisy environments, right? Other people are not like that, right? Like so, there is a lot of complexity to finding spaces, but a lot of it, unfortunately, the simple reality is those spaces either aren't there anymore as they were before, or have been placed behind a paywall. And that was actually a real example. Like I went to speed dating here in Calgary like a couple of weeks ago. It was very fun. But it was like a paid experience, right? It was very much had this transactional quality to it. One of my thoughts was, yeah, I hope this is worth it. Like, I hope the money I'm paying for this is worth it. And I don't know if that unconsciously affected the choices I made, for example, right? So there is that dimension of we live in a world where, unfortunately, a lot of shared spaces are gone, right? And those that remain have been, I'm going to use this word from Marx, alienated. So you're at work, you're there to work, you're going to talk to people, you see the others as, just competition for the corporate template. You don't talk to them outside of work. I think that unfortunately, again, that answers to simply a system that demands that you use all your energy to produce and not use your energy to make friends. Because again, making friends takes energy. So there is this conflict between what your work was to do, and we spend most of our time at work. However, and this kind of leads us to the other more technological side of this. We do live in 2025, where the magic of technology has made it so that we can communicate real time, even if we are literally half the planet away right now. I think that also has an important role to play. I do think that to characterize social media and social networks as just hostile or just something net negative is also disingenuous. It also, people who before could not leave their houses because health, disabilities, geographic location, can now make friends, can now play online with other people, can now make art and show it to the world, can now have a remote job. Like, for some people, technology has been life-changing. Their lives are now at a level of normality thanks to technology that would have been impossible just 100 years ago. However, this, like the result of all of this, is that now making friends, like I said before, is almost a full-time job. Now you have to think about the spaces where you're going to go. Now you have to think about how you're going to spend your limited resources to make the best of these spaces. Now you're having to think of, okay, how do I use these new tools, these new technologies to achieve my objective? So what used to be, talk to somebody like at school because they are sitting next to you and you need a pen and you forgot yours, is now this very complex task that requires executive and social functioning to be developed to a certain level. Like, and on top of that, it requires you to have the energy and the privilege of time to do all of these things. Maybe I have the money to go speed dating, but I don't have the time because I work 2 jobs. So there is that. So there is the problem. I think is that human connection naturally as we grow becomes more complex. But because the world of adults, let's say, has become more complex, establishing those relationships has become more complex as well. I think a good kind of proof study is what we have done here, to take this assessment of what are the challenges that you have found to being friends. I would say here, for the kind of go to the other way, what are the challenges you have found on yourself, right? Well, there are definitely sort of these social challenges. But when I said that making friends takes effort, the tool that you apply that effort to is yourself, right? So normally, here's the deal. We avoid asking this kind of direct, what do you think question, because it's not object oriented. But in this case, the tool, the thing that we're talking about is also yourself, right? So, yeah, sure, going to the gym and eating better is gonna help you make friends. Yeah, this is true, because it helps you with everything. But in this case, really, like, it is about you, and about what you want, about what your personality allows you to do, right? Like the example I gave you before, right? Like, yes, I went to speed dating. I can do that like 2 times a year. The rest of the year, I do not have the social like energy to go out and meet 80 strangers in an hour, right? That's too much for me. So there is that element of, okay, I also have to be honest with myself, right? Like, I'm not going to go every month on speed dating, even if, what would experience or whatever. Like, doesn't make sense for me. It would be too much to ask for myself. So that's, I think, kind of sort of the idea here. So it's important to look at this interplay between yourself and how your environment, both locally and online, interacts with that. And I think that will kind of be my next question. Like, so how do you see yourself, or how do you see this space? This is a good question. How much would you say is responsibility of your environment, and how much would you say is responsibility of yourself, the individual?
I think that's even worse. Because there are these heavy cultural differences between how people in the Andean region and in the coast side region of Ecuador interact.
Yeah.
Yep. The coast is usually get a lot of extra movement, right, and expression, and sometimes violence in the language. Not only for what happens on the streets, but the language they use tends to be a little more violent than that one we use on the Andean region, right? The other thing is that, and it's not a discriminatory vision, but it's also something that gets to do with statistics. We got different levels of preparation.
You know that means which? Yes, sure.
So that's an issue sometimes, and generates a barrier in communication, because you're not able to communicate the ideas so they could understand you, and they are not able to give you feedback on what you're telling them. So connection and communication are broken due to these differences. Unfortunately, it's something that needs to be worked on because it comes from the highest spheres. So it's not something that we as normal humans could repair, but unfortunately, it's being done that way. Yeah. So at the end, it's this idea that sometimes when you meet somebody, right? And mostly in social media, because that's the way we end up meeting somebody now. I can get the feeling that you're sometimes in the middle of a performance. Yeah, like not completely real, too theatrical sometimes. And I was thinking the other day that maybe it's a side effect of the theater of the mind. Uh, Too many years spent on role-playing games, and now everything looks like too elaborated to be real sometimes. That's, I hope it's not some sort of dementia.
It's okay,
to,
we're not letting go
but,
anyway, so don't worry.
but the game is something that is valid. So I'm sorry, but I sometimes need to use words that came from different places. But I tell you this because you feel this, you get this sensation of made up identities that people need to show they are more than they actually are. And that feels unreal. Yeah. It gets ludicrous because you're trying to get along, to meet someone and actually connect with someone that is truly that person on the back. But then profiles look like a copy paste idea with different faces. And sometimes even the faces are the same. Also, I noticed this a long time ago when I was single and looking for a couple, that people are using stuff like Tinder to actually sell you stuff. But offer, I don't know, like, what was that? Was a girl that was offering medical services through that kind of platform. She wasn't able to find a job as a nurse, I guess, something like that. And she was looking for a job in Tinder for something, I don't know, an old guy may need a nurse, full-time job or something like that. And she was in the platform looking for it. So but I think it's a tendency in general because you see the same thing in the news network. Maybe you change the people that present the news, but at the end they are all talking about the same, maybe, and sometimes exactly the same script. So when they start talking about these ideas of being in a simulation, they start to make sense, right? It might not be the end of this conversation, but when you start to see everything copied like a replica of other ideas once over and over again, even with some of your friends, people that you used to know, all of a sudden they start to repeat a discourse, yeah, a speech that is not their voice, but they are repeating it over and over again. And so, what happened? Is this my friend that I met a long time ago and used to be a junkie, and now is repeating this speech, or what is going on, right? So what happened to the network? It has framed, I don't know, cabled us all into the same network, and we're all getting the same information, and now we can't escape that kind of reality.
I remember the first time I started living in the US. The first time we had a long ride. I don't know where we're going. We're just driving somewhere. I noticed that even if I changed the station, I would hear the same song over and over again, and over and over and over and over again. and I probably realized that how to say the commercials were synchronized. So if I tried to change, a lot of the stations would be playing commercial at the same time. Turns out that's not the metrics. What's going on is that these multimedia conglomerates have all sort of joined together. So now I think in the US it's like 4 companies own 90% of all the radio and TV stations. So you are literally seeing the same message or the same script because it is the same message and the same script that's coming from above. So that's a weapon, but I just want to mention that in terms of the matrix. I think that when it comes to more like human relationships and this idea of performativity or putting on a character to relate, I think it's important to think of this as a value, right? Like all our interactions are a character, right? Like we kind of talked a little bit about this in the training, but like all that is real is your physicality of a mammal that's wearing clothes. Like that's what you are. You're an animal. Everything else has been built with words. So when I say, "Hi, my name is Josh," that's words. There's nothing in my body that says that my name is Josh. If I say I'm a psychologist, that's words. There's nothing changed when I went to university. Like maybe I was like older, I guess, but like I'm like what I am physically in reality didn't change. So whenever I when a client calls me, I have to enter a role because I am not actually talking as a psychologist if you call to the healer field. I am talking either as a director or as a healer. I am not talking about as a clinician. So everything we're doing, or everyday life, requires us to enter into a certain role. We don't behave the same way with our grandparents that we do with our high school friends. There are words we may not even say in the presence of one another, right? I think the important part here is to. This is not a malicious planning that we do. This is not us as sneaky humans trying to lie. This is an effect of reality. Now, we can only see so much of the other person. So the other person will always do their best to ensure that what we see is what they want us to see. And we do this unconscious, right? If I go on the bus, I would probably take a shower, even if I work from home, so that I'm not like a shower every day. But if I am going out, I probably will. Even if I'm not going to talk to somebody, even if I'm not going to do anything, I will probably take a shower, right? Like, the same things go when we meet somebody new, right? Like, as open as we can be, right? There is always a limit to how much you're willing to say to somebody you just met, right? Like, there is always because we cannot say everything at once. We always have to select what we say. But this is not necessarily an act of malicious planning. This is just the result of how communication works, right? I can only communicate linearly, so I have to choose what I'm going to present. It is true that, again, you can take this to the other extreme now, where every single detail of what I present to you, I premeditate, right? You can take this to the other extreme, where everything I do has a premeditated tactical explanation to what I'm doing. But at the point, that's manipulation. At that point, I'm using myself as a tool to manipulate you, right? Again, it's about this idea of balance, right? Because we live in a society, we cannot swing too much into the other side either, right? Going back to the example I gave you of not taking a shower, right? There is a limit to how much I can ignore society before society starts pushing back. So there's always this game of balance of most people want to present as much as they can because that's more comfortable. The less I have to think of what I'm presenting to you, the easier it is for me to be with you. So if I'm going to a job interview where everything I say I want to make sure is what I want you to see, that's going to be super exhausting. If I'm going out for a beer with a friend that I have known for 10 years, I'm not going to be thinking about what I'm saying. So that's going to be relaxing. So there is that element of all relationships have some dimension of performativity. Like there's always like us that we put forward to other people. Right? Like again, sometimes it's a matter of practice, right? If I really like video games, but my partner doesn't, that aspect of myself is gonna be left out. Because it doesn't make sense to me to tell, hey, let me tell you about this great game of Counter-Strike that I played yesterday. Like, I mean, maybe I can tell you for fun, but it's not really that side of me coming up. It's just my side of, as a partner, I'm telling you about my day. And I guess this idea kind of makes sense of performativity as something that's normal. And it's more about taking responsibility for that. And more about, yeah, like, it's not like I'm lying when I do this. It is what kind of me am I presenting. Because it's not that the other friends aren't me. Yes, they're also me. But I cannot show them all to you at the same time. So what am I showing you? Ideally first, right? And I'm going to ask you the question.
Sort of, but yet still I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm just too stubborn for this. If I actually manage to be in a situation where I'm performing a character, right? It usually is just in a professional environment. Yeah, because I know if I actually do as I am, I probably be getting into a lot of trouble. So yeah, that's the only situation. I know I do it. I don't understand why people will do it in a different situation, but I understand that okay, maybe it's the same mechanism that is behind, right? That somehow you need to protect something of yourself or from yourself from the others, or to save the others, maybe, if that makes any sense. So like a contention measure to protect something, even if it's you or the others, from whatever could come out, from the beast that could come out.
Yes, but that's only one side, because it's not always negative, right? Like I said before, if you are with your grandmother, your role and the way you behave is going to be different, but not in a negative way. You're probably going to be more polite, more kind to her, more loving. If you are with your girlfriend, you're probably going to be more loving, more kind, more attentive than if you are with, I don't know, with just a friend, right? Like, you probably aren't going to kiss your friend. You probably will kiss your girlfriend. But that doesn't mean that you're being fake with your friend because you aren't kissing them. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there are roles that we have almost having life, but that's just how we function. Like, there are things that we cannot do with some people because it wouldn't make sense. We wouldn't want to do it anyway, right? Like, it's not that like an example, right? Because I'm not kissing my friend, that doesn't mean I don't like them or love them as much as I love my girlfriend. It just means that we have a different relationship in which we do not kiss. So my role in this relationship does not include kissing. My role in the relationship with my girlfriend does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that's well, as far as I get it, those are more like boundaries than masquerading. If you get what I mean. I mean, switching completely your personality to interact with others. It's what I'm thinking of.
Right, yes. At that point,
because,
the extreme of manipulation, right? If I am changing my personality to get you to do something or not do something, I manipulate you. That's me using my mind to manipulate you. So, right, I would say at that point, yes, like that's a hostile act. If I am actively lying to you to get you to do something, I'm being hostile towards you. I am trying to manipulate you. But I would say, most people don't do that. Like, most people simply have different roles with different people. Something that is true is that insecurity can often be translated into lying about myself. So that is true. So some people will say, I don't know, like, you ask them, what do you do? Oh, I am I am a vice president of my company. They are just an office worker, right? Like, okay, sure. Why are you lying? It's insecurity. Like, again, it's not necessarily a hostility of, oh, I'm like against you. It is just, oh, what do you think about that? I just started working 1 month ago. Like, that sounds like I'm a loser. So let me tell you that I've been working there for 2 years. I'm not going to go that I'm a virgin, so I'm going to tell you that I have had so much sex. Sure, I mean,
Sure.
it's more about me and my it's more about me and my insecurities than about you. Like, I'm thinking about myself.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about
I get you there. Okay. So, well, that's it with the session, but let's get some facts, right? Some facts. Some frequently asked questions on this matter.
Okay.
What people ask to the AI commonly. And let's see how we humans respond to that.
Okay.
So, question number 1. What exactly is the loneliness crisis?
Okay. So loneliness crisis is both an increasing our ability to sort of identify loneliness as a problem and something that needs to be worked on, and also a consequence of the loss of those third spaces that I mentioned. So as we grow older, as society becomes more decentralized, I would say, into us being at home, those spaces are lost. So this combination of factors make it so that not only we're now aware that there is more loneliness than we realize as well that the way things are right now, it's increasing the amount of loneliness rather than bringing it down. So this is the crisis. The crisis is that there is a lot of loneliness, and rather than this being in the process of being resolved, it is getting worse. So that's the loneliness crisis. Usually you hear it in the context of men. And yes, that's because that's the most visible side of the loneliness crisis, because right-wing extremists. But women are also in a loneliness crisis. It just looks somewhat different. Okay, think of, well, I mean, this happened with men as well, but again, because of cultural differences, it looks a little different, right? But think of people who very much, otherwise successful, right? Like, okay, I have my career, I have my house, I have my children, whatever. Why can't I find a husband? Why can't I find a wife? Right? Like, I am such a good, how do you say this in English? I am such a good option, such a good candidate for a partner. Why can't I find a partner? Well, I mean, because you don't have time to find a partner, right? We talked about earlier, right? Like, it takes effort to establish a relationship. If you can go extra text, sure, like, it's really, really challenging for you to find a wife, a husband, or whatever, right? And this, again, is across the board. This sort of exhaustion of resources. That's what's at the bottom of these loneliness crisis. Because resources are exhausted, men and women are in a crisis that looks different for each of them because of cultural differences.
Well, but it won't matter anymore, because if other countries follow the lead of Japanese government, soon enough we will be paying taxes for being alone.
Yeah, and the US is coming to that soon. I hope that we get to hear in Canada, but yeah.
Let's go. Question number 2. It says, how did loneliness evolve from a private feeling to a social epidemic?
I think there are 2 elements there. One is the... Okay, so this, a little bit of historical context. As we move into the Enlightenment and we start leaving behind these ideas of God as the center of everything and as the organizer of everything, it is humans who come to be at the center. So this is what we call anthropocentrism, the centering of humans as the most important thing. As this shift is happening in the 19th, 20th century, this process of individualization of society is also happening. So because the human is now the most important thing, it is the individual human that is the most important thing. This is not a negative thing, but what this provokes is that we start looking at my feelings now are important. So my feelings now are things that deserve the world to react to my feelings. So now it makes sense for me, finally, if I feel lonely, to try and do something about it. Before it was just something that happened, it was just something that's there. Now, because I am human, I am the center of the universe, I can change the environment and solve this issue. So now this is an issue that can be solved, not just something that happens. So that's kind of the process that occurs, where I'm talking very much about the Western side. I don't know how this works in the Islamic world or in Asia, but there is this movement towards now the individual matters and the individual feelings matters, and then romanticism kind of is the expression of that. And the way capitalism takes this up is as, okay, it's your responsibility. Everything is your responsibility. If whatever's going on, don't look at the system. Don't look at anything. It's your fault. It has to be you. It's you who's not working on enough. It's you who's not taking meds, not going to therapy. Yes, do those things. Definitely work out, eat well, sleep, go to therapy. Yes. But those are things that you should do for self-care. Like, it's not your fault that these things are the way they are. They are just the way they are. And that's how we get into the crisis that we have right now, where there is this hyper-individualism that in its effort to make myself as an individual flourish, I disconnect from the others. We talked about this, I think, last session as well, where as much as I want to be an individual, I can't. It's not reality. These clothes, I did not make them. This lighting I'm using today, I did not make the lighting, the LEDs, the shell, this and the... I depend on society. Hyper-individualism alienates you from that reality and says, no. You are what matters. You are... If something is wrong, it's your fault. God, don't think about everything else, it's you. But that's not reality. It is... Finding a community requires a community. If that makes sense.
Of course. And that makes me think that this is where Renaissance has brought us.
Yes.
At the end.
Yes.
That's the revolution they caused. So,
yes.
Well, thank Mr. Da Vinci and all the guys behind those ideas at the beginning. But let's get to question number 3. So, is technology making us lonelier or more connected?
It is a mix of both. I like to think of technology the same way we think about like medication, where if you use it intentionally, when it makes sense to use it, it is positive for you. If you start abusing it, if you start using it in ways that you know are harmful for you, it will be harmful for you. So I think it has these two sides. Well, yes, definitely. Like social media, like I said before, this channel we're having right now, the people that are watching this or that will watch this in the future, impossible without technology. I think the problem is that rather than establishing relationships between people, social media encourages to establish relationships with this presented image of someone. Rather than this being a social relationship, it's a parasocial relationship. Rather than it being based on our shared experiences, it is based on what I see of you and what you see of me. But we lost this connection where we realize, oh, maybe I don't have to like everything about you. Maybe there is this room for imperfection. Maybe I can respect some aspects of you and not others. Like, this nuance gets lost by the sanitization that social media forces you. And this is very much literal, right? Like, social media does not let you put aggressive things on it, negative things on it, sexual things on it without a warning. That means that, by definition, you are incomplete in social media. Because nobody is an angel without aggressive, sexual, or whatever, right? So when we take that image that has been sanitized, marketized, made palatable, as that being the real person, that's the problem, because it's not. So now you are forming this idea, this relationship, this everything, with something that is not a person. It is an illusion. So I think there is difficulty or these. I think there needs to be a certain literacy around social media. I think, like with everything else, we learn to use. I think we should also learn to use social media. We should also learn to think about these things, like I just said. That maybe what I'm seeing right now in this Facebook page, in this Instagram page, in this TikTok video, maybe that's not the whole person. Maybe there is more to this. So maybe I'm not actually in love with this person that I have only watched videos from, because there is a very perfect human behind it. So I think that is what kind of gets lost with social media, this nuance of people. And we end up with this situation where somebody has to be either absolutely evil or absolutely good. Either I hate you and I can't stand you and I block you, or I love you and I will die for you. No. People are complicated. People will have opinions that you don't agree with. People will have opinions that you 100% agree with. That's normal. That's what people are. Complex beings, right? And having a relationship means accepting the things that I don't like. And I think that's the challenge. I think we live in a society where you can, about everything, you can pick exactly what you want. If I go to Wendy's right now, I can pick exactly what I want inside of my burger. If the website is exactly the way I want it to be. Relationships don't work like that. But social media pretends they do. They don't. So when I have a new friend, it's very difficult for me to accept the things I don't like. Because what do you mean I don't like? Yeah, I should like, they're my friend. No, it's okay to not like things. You can still be friends. These are, I think that stage. The issue is how social media castrates people to present them as these pure sanitized image of themselves.
Well, I will jump ahead a little bit because due to time, but also I'm getting these ideas of do not get the AI girlfriend. But I don't know. Maybe it will help somebody at some point. As you say, as complex as we are, maybe someone will need something like that, even though it may lead you to, I don't know. I don't know if it's a healthy relationship at the end. But listen to what we got here that's been set up by somebody that was aware of this podcast, and they're asking about what happened, or what about the traditional communities, or the community spaces. Where are they now? Have them digitized? Have them be digitized or digitalized somehow? I think that's where they are going. Yeah. What happened to the community spaces?
And this may be a little controversial, but I'm going to say that the decline of religion has a lot to do with the loss of third space. Right? Like, when people talk about these, people will talk about libraries, about parks, and yes, sure. But libraries and parks are still there. And I don't see people making friends in libraries. I think something that was lost as religion use or religious participation has declined is this space that has no purpose. If you go to church, I mean, sure, you're there to pray, but nothing else. Like, you don't go to church with an agenda. Well, unless you are the person setting the religion, I guess, but if you are an attendee, you're there to do nothing. You're there to see your friends. It's not that you are there literally to find your wife, right? There were a lot of these functions that religious spaces have. Like, even now, if you talk to your grandfather or to somebody religious in your house, they will probably have stories about how somebody met their wife at church, how somebody made their new business partner at church, how somebody found their community at church. I think the problem is that in the wrong way, these spaces also were transformed by like the society of consumption that we were talking about before. And rather than being these spaces where you go to be with your community and to meet people, they became these spaces where I'm trying to sell you something. I'm trying to sell you salvation. And I usually think that a lot of people got put off by that. I do think that a lot of the decline of religion has less to do with like atheism rising, and more with the practical real spaces becoming places to sell you something. instead of somewhere where you literally go meet your wife. I remember reading this. I don't remember exactly where may have been the US, but I remember something where it turns out that younger generations are going back to these traditional spaces. And again, it has nothing to do with them suddenly finding Jesus. It has to do with them realizing that, oh, these spaces had a function before, like other than telling me Jesus. These spaces had another function. It is the space where I go meet my neighbor. It is the space where I go meet my friend that I haven't seen since last week. Maybe I don't see my brother the whole week because we both work 8 hours a day. But on Sundays we get to chat on the drive to the church. We get to chat when we are at church. Like these very human functions, unfortunately, were also lost. Not only by the decline of religious institutions, but by the transformation of religious institutions into modern day institutions that care about profits and about key indicator numbers. However, I really think that as we move forward, these spaces are going to return. I don't know if from a religious perspective, the problem is, like you said very well earlier, so many spaces exist, but they cost either money or you have to literally sell your soul to be there. There are very few that will genuinely, openly say, we are here for everybody, just come in. And again, very much of a privilege. Like, I happen to live in Calgary, which there is a church like three blocks away that has a gay pride church, gay pride flag flying outside. That is not a very common thing. So if you happen to be an LGBTQ person and you want to go to church, you're fucked. If you don't live in a big city where there are modern day religious institutions that are really, like, I would say, actually Christian, it's like there is a limitation in reality of what we can do. And I think that what is going to happen is that these places that are actually becoming more inclusive, that are actually sort of, like I said, are really embodying these message of love everybody, of care about everybody, are also going to start moving into online space. Because I think that's the next step. I think when they realize, oh shit, like people are coming here for what we have to sell, they will start moving into online spaces. And I think that's kind of the future. I think that a lot of online communities are essentially communities organized around a personality, around a YouTuber, around a Twitch streamer, around a VTuber. Like, you don't talk about Jesus, sure, but you are there with a group of people that think very highly about a single person that has a generally strong voice in the community. And I genuinely think that that's perfectly fine. I do think that most people want the people that care about them to be okay and to be happy and to be fine. So I generally think most people are okay, like having a community around themselves. I only think that there needs to be a little bit of education, like I said right now. Right, like there needs to be a little bit of education. Like, you know, these people are not worshiping you. They are there for the community. They are there for the space that you have created, sure, but not for you. So I think there is a lot of these transformations still going on. I definitely think that due to their nature, like traditional institutions, take a lot longer to change, take a lot longer to adapt to the times. But I really think that the future is more inclusive. I really think the future is more. These institutions take a more inclusive role, and because of that, they become bigger. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Vatican has an anime girl mascot. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Vatican is, like, the Pope is parading New York City with this group of gay people. Like, I genuinely think there is already in motion a process of regaining these spaces as a space where you genuinely can just go be there, hang out without paying anything, be it money or your soul, just be there. But it's going to take time. I hope that things like what we're doing here, like trying to put the word out there, trying to educate people, will also help with creating these spaces, right? I do hope that, you know, we do this on Wednesdays. At some point, people can have this 1 hour space on Wednesdays to relax for a little bit, hearing us talk about whatever, right? I do think that as community organization becomes more accessible for people, more and more communities will start springing up. I just think there needs to be more educational. Like it's not easy to have like a group of people. And I think a lot of the issues that we see nowadays come from that, from simply not having been prepared to dealing with the issues of handling a group of people, or being part or leader or organizing a community. But I think that's just a learned skill. Like I don't think that's anything that I think everybody can learn that. And I think that's just also why we do things like this. Try to educate people on how to be positive things, positive influences in their communities.
Well then, now it's your turn to walk out of this loneliness crisis, and maybe you'll find someone that will cope and walk with you in this quest ahead. What else, Josh?
No, thank you. Thank you very much for coming today. I hope someone what we spoke today is useful for you guys. I really think if there's one message I want you to take from this is, yes, you have to do with this. Like it's about you too, but there is also a systemic challenge in making friends. It's not just you. Yes, work on yourself. Yes, go to therapy, take your med, work out, eat well, sleep. Yes, but also remember that the system, the world we're living has changed, and sometimes you have to pay money for this. Like, but there are also other options, right? Like there are also online communities. Just be mindful of who you are really establishing a relationship with. Remember that it's not kind of paradoxical, but you really get to know people when you are not doing anything. When you are just hanging out, that's where you get to see people as they really are. And I think that is something that has become very challenging nowadays. So that's what I would invite you to do. Do nothing. Hang out with people without a goal, without an objective, without like a plan. Just be there. And if you find somebody that you like talking to, just talk to them. It's even harder to do than to say it. But I think the first step is just stop trying and just enjoy the spaces that you enjoy socially. But don't forget that you want to meet new people. So also don't be just a passive observer of the world, right? You are there, you want to meet people. So keep that in mind, but don't make it all about that. Meeting people is part of you being part of a community or a space or somewhere else. But that's kind of the tip here. The whole summary for this is think about yourself, but also think about the space and about the goal that you have. Like be honest about it. If you want to meet somebody, go somewhere where you can meet somebody. Like don't go to take piano lessons. What you want to do is meet somebody. Like be explicit and intentional about what you do. I think that's kind of the summary for this for today. So yeah, I hope that's useful for you.
Excellent. So until next time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.